Hello everyone, the Conceptual IS welcomes you all just like always. So in this session, we are going to progress for some more concept belonging to HARALAMBOS and HALBORN textbook. And today we will cover a very significant concept described by Karl Marx, the famous sociologist, historian, you can say an author, a writer who has contributed almost every wings of the social development, whether it is polity, economy, it is history, it is sociology, it is anthro or whatever. So from the archives of Karl Marx, we will today cover the theory and principles of dialectics. What are dialectics per se? Why there are two opposite forces every time? Where are conflict? Why these conflicts are emerging? Everything we will understand. Why there are two classes being dealt by Karl Marx. Who are these two classes? Are you one of them or not? You will understand everything. So without wasting lots of time, we will go through just to understand how important is this concept. For example, UPSC has repeatedly asked question from this section. For example, in 2017, analyze Marxian conception of historical materialism as a critique of Hegelian dialectics. So then you should understand what is dialectics first of all. Second, in 2021, question was asked about the dialectics involved in each modes of production as described by Karl Marx. Explain how political parties and pressure groups are dialectically related and examine the dialectical relation between tradition and modernity. So what is this dialectics as a whole? We need to understand and everything. So without waiting lots of time, we can now progress that what are these dialectics Marx talking about. See, that to understand dialectics, we need to have few basic understanding that Marx is dealing with, and that is superstructure theory. Superstructure. When Marx was dealing with superstructure, Marx used to believe that society has certain structure. In social system, there are certain structure which functions in some concrete ways. So Marx called them social superstructure, which has a base and superstructure. Superstructure. So what is base and what is superstructure? Base is defined by two things. One, modes of production. And other is relations of production. Relations of production. Then superstructure. So first we need to understand what is mode of production. As per the Marx theory, modes of production is something that is associated in the production process, because Marx used to believe that social change is derived from the economic factors. So these are economic factors. Economic factors. Economic factors. What can be economic factors? Labor, technology, capital, machinery, and every land and everything that is utilized for production of goods and services, or you can say production of money. There are other things, and that is relations of production. So in relations of production, Marx primarily focus on two things. One, division of labor, and other, capital ownership. capital ownership. Capital ownership. Then comes superstructure. So we will discuss superstructure later. First, we have to explore more about capital ownership and economic factors. So capital ownership is basically dealt as owned by, land owned by capitalist, and there are the higher hierarchy in production process, which is none but the directors, top managers, they are also part of modes of production, capital ownership. In division of labor, there are various departments, associated in production process. So these are the classification of superstructure by base by the Marx. And what is superstructure? Superstructure is said to be following things: a culture, education, religion, rituals, law, polity, and many more things. So these are superstructure. Marx believes that the basis, factors of production and relations of production determines how this superstructure supposed to function. For example, in medieval period, when there was feudal system prevalent in entire Europe and rest of the world, the factors of production, or you say modes of production, were traditional. One, technologies were invented, modes of production transformed from manual labor to machine labor. Therefore, surplus production was done, surplus capital was generated, and capitalist class transformed feudal setup to industrial setup. Industrial setup, increasing level of production, expanded the size of market. Thus, new economy emerged, and in this new economy, owners of asset, owners of capital were very few, and laborers, small farmers, who were largely dependent on these owners, were huge. Marx identified these lower class as proletariat and these property owned upper elites as bourgeois. So these bourgeois and proletariat, these were two basic classes Marx identified, and in this structure where there was a base and superstructure, base used to influence superstructure and superstructure used to influence base, but primarily base was the main factor or primary factor to influence this superstructure. The nature of religion, nature of culture, education system was supposed to be influenced by these bases, factors of production, as Marx believed. But Marx identified that in this social structure where the superstructure are created, these superstructures are created These superstructures are created for some definite purpose. And what was this purpose? This purpose, we will certainly discuss the purpose, but this purpose was to be fulfilled by the state. So what was that purpose? Fulfilled. State fulfilled following purposes. State fulfilled following purposes. His purpose was to serve interest of dominant ruling elites, property owned upper class, religious clergies, therefore these superstructures are designed. The purpose of superstructure was this. Purpose of superstructure. Purpose was the superstructure was this: to serve dominant ruling class, upper class, religious clergies, property owned these upper class. For example, education system is designed for some definite purposes. What were these? How to control the asset, how to manage the asset, so that status quo would be maintained. I mean, money is creating wealth, or wealth is creating more wealth. Therefore, the super elite and rich class will remain rich forever, and a vicious cycle of poverty trap will engrave vast number of the proletariat, I mean serving class, essentially those who do not have asset or large number of assets. Therefore, these superstructures were created. Legal system, judicial system are the superstructure. Caste system in India, Varna system in India, religious system, political system, these systems are created to serve these rich dominant class, to serve the interest of these rich dominant class. These were the essence of classical understanding of the Marx about this superstructure. But this superstructure have certain contradictions. These superstructures had certain contradictions. Those contradictions are dialectic. We will discuss these things in little bit greater detail. So, Marx used to believe that social change is fundamentally rooted in the concept of material aspect of the society. What are these material aspects? Economic systems, which posits that economic factors are primarily drivers of social evolution or social change. So, from the base, Marx identifies that material aspect key driver or primary driver for social. So, what are the key drivers? Economic base, key drivers of social change. Key drivers of social change. What are first? The base. What are the base? We know that modes of production and relations of production. Modes of production and relations of production. Relations of production has two things. One is division of labor, other is ownership. Second factor is class struggle. Class struggle. Base, and second thing is class struggle. As Marx believes that conflict between bourgeois and proletariats is the primary cause of revolution, and revolution brings social change. Fine. So revolution is one more aspect. Revolution is other aspect of social change, because there is conflict. Why there is conflict? Because there is inequality. Why there is inequality? That we understood in conflict perspective change the last class. So these are the key drivers of social change, and how this dialectical process emerged. Now we will understand how this dialectical process has emerged. Dialectical process. So Marx applied the dialectical method to understand the process of social change. How? So for that, Marx has identified three things. One is thesis. This means existing system. Existing system. When Marx was in Europe, it was industrial society or capitalism. The existing system was capitalism. So that is thesis. Another is antithesis. Antithesis means contradictions. Contradictions, for example, capitalism has inherent contradictions. What are these contradictions? Because there was growing inequality, because there was growing inequality. So there was demand for social change or systemic change. Why? Because there was inequality. There was equality. So to counter capitalism, why to counter capitalism? Because there is inequality. Antithesis means opposition of existing system. Opposition of existing system. And what was existing system during the Marx? Capitalism. So this opposition is antithesis. Opposition is antithesis. Right? So in between the two, synthesis appears. So in between thesis and antithesis, there appears synthesis. Synthesis, new social order. New social order, like socialism. Like what? Socialism. A new social order which emerged was socialism as a synthesis, as an outcome of thesis and antithesis. Fine. So here we understood how thesis means existing system, like capitalism during the period of Marx. To oppose the inherent contradictions, antithesis emerged as an opposite force of capitalism, and midway ground was emerged as synthesis. So synthesis led to new social order said to be socialism. Fine. Now we will understand how dialectical relationship between forces, relations of production emerged. Dialectical relation between the two. Who are two? Forces of production and relations of production. These are two significant things in between dialectical relationship has emerged. So forces of production are technology, labor force, or say labor, and natural resources. Natural resources. What are relations of production? As we discussed earlier, relations of production includes property rights, class relation, I mean, for example, division of labor and ownership, class relation, which includes division of labor and ownership. There can be some more, for example, high paid salary groups, directors, board of directors, top managers. These are those relations of production. Fine. And what are the dialectics? So dialectical relationship between these two elements, I mean forces of production and relationship of production, can be understood from the historical change. For example, forces of production tended to develop a time to technological advancement. Forces of production, labor, natural resource, technology led to development of newer technology, newer inventions, and technological change. When these forces outgrew existing relations of production, contradictions arise. Why? Because when newer technology emerges, some ownership class or bourgeois try to capture those technology. However, laborers cannot, or newer emerging middle class cannot fully excluded from the benefits of those newer technology. Thus, among these proletariat, some members will arise their stature. They will try to acquire newer technology. When they will try to acquire newer technology, or they will acquire newer technology, they will create competition with existing or previously existing elites or bourgeois. Thus, there will be competition, and the forces who are still behind will become weaker or even more weaker, because these will be exploited for the benefits of elites and especially newly emerged middle class or newly emerged bourgeois. Therefore, the condition of proletariat will become even more worse, or we can say that inequality will become more grave, or the gravest form of inequality will prevail. Thus, the contradiction is inevitable, and these contradictions will be fueled by economic crisis between these two. Contradictions will deepen because of economic crisis in the two. How? And to understand how these contradictions, this conflict will become more severe, we need to understand law of dialectics. So we will now understand law of dialectics. Law of dialectics. First law is interconnectedness. Interconnectedness. So interconnectedness or interdependence or interdependence, as Marx believes that in society every system is interconnected with other system. I mean, from the production point of view, forces of production in one unit is interdependent with forces and relations of production in other units. Just like iron industries and textile industries are interdependent with each other. Forces of production in iron industries are dependent on forces and relations of production in textile industry. Similarly, forces of production in textile industries interdependent, interconnected with all other forms of social system prevailing. But how and why there is contradictions? So second law is contradiction. Contradiction. Why and how these contradictions are noticed? Because when every entity or every process that exists, there are two nature of forces. One, who owns what? Means of production, of course, yes. But in more clear terms, they own profit, and the share of profit is unequally distributed. Now please pay attention. The share of profit is unequally distributed among the other forces. Who are other forces? Labor, yes. Technology, yes. Therefore, when share of profit is unequally distributed among the forces of production will have only few conditions. Either to demand is not fulfilled, to strive, if they are still ignored, they can revolt. So these are the methods. Therefore, contradictions emerged because rich is getting richer. Why? Because rich is controlling the profits. Profit is unequally distributed, so rich will become richer. Rich will become richer and poor becomes poorer. Rich becomes richer and poor becomes poorer. Therefore, such situation need to be treated. But how? Are there certain or wonderful method? No, as per the viewpoint of Karl Marx. And Marx suggests that revolution is the only way, because evolution will only create these ridges to be wider, these divisions to be wider. Evolution is designed to serve the benefits of what or whom? These super dominant classes. Fine. So law of dialectics have interconnectedness, contradictions. There are some other laws under the law of dialectics. The law of negation of negation. Law of negation of negation. Marx believes that since there is a thesis means existing social system and there is opposite forces called antithesis means opposition, there will be midway, that is synthesis. For example, feudal society when was antithesized by industrial society, they led to development of socialism. Why? Why? Because the proletariat class was negated and the new bourgeois will now negate the existing. Means industrial society has negated because they were those who negated the proletariat. So when proletariat will negate these bourgeois, I mean industrial society, there will be negation of. Fine. Then there will be transformation of quantity into quality. Transformation of quantity into quality. Transformation of quantity into quality. To understand this section, first, just like if you heat the water, there will be change in quantity, but after a point there will be qualitative changes. When water will vaporize, there will be qualitative changes. Similarly, quantitative changes will accumulate the wealth in the hand of few, as Marx believes. There will be qualitative change. Why? Because when the accumulation of quantitative changes reaches to a critical point, qualitative changes occurs. When quantitative changes will reach to a critical point where inequality will become graver and proletariat and bourgeois will not be able to hold each other, and especially proletariat would suffer in such a level that they will try to negate these bourgeois. Thus, there will be qualitative. These laws will lead to a massive revolution. Qualitative changes will bring socialist form of system or communist system or newer political order. Thus, newer political order or socialism or communism will bring equality and harmony among the members of society. So these are the dialectical forces. When they functions, there will be contradictions. Contradictions, revolution. Revolution means social change. Social change means a newer social order or political setup will emerge. So these are the dialectical forces we understood today. I hope this is understood to you. This was not very difficult. Why sociology is greatest of all optional? Because it is the smallest syllabus. It is the easiest syllabus, scientific in nature, and that's why most of second ranker you see belongs to this section. Animesh rank 2, Jagrati rank 2, Anu rank 2, Gamini rank 3, Srishti rank 5, Yaksha rank, and there are many more. We have newer batches of sociology in Hindi and English medium. In case you want to learn or earn Labashna entry or your name in the final result PDF, you should join sociology classes. We have Hindi and English medium of sociology batches with test series. You can call us and knock us. You can check the marks achieved in sociology. 329, which is one of the greatest marking, 312, 318, wonderful marking. So I will just advise, do not make your path so difficult if you can get easy selection. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead.